Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Friday with Vistage webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some items to help you participate in today's webinar. If you're experiencing technical difficulties joining the webinar session, please dial support at 1-888-259-8414. When you join today's webinar, you selected to join either by phone call or computer audio. If for any reason you would like to change your selection, you can do so by accessing your audio pane in your control panel. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Please note that a PDF of today's presentation is available for download on your control panel, and a recording of this presentation will be sent to attendees via email within the next week. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today, Bill Black.
Welcome to Fridays with Vistage. My name is Bill Black. I'm a Vistage speaker and member, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar, which is entitled Customer Growth, Strategies for SMB Success in 2018. Recent research shows that SMB CEOs believe that the climate for growth is strong. Leaders of high-growth SMBs have a strong focus on their customers as they implement strategies and execute initiatives to drive growth through their marketing, sales, and customer service functions. Today, you will hear compelling research on customer growth strategies that have been implemented by SMB CEOs, and you will learn about the resources, including systems and technologies that they leverage to achieve their goals. Today, we're honored to have as our speaker Joe Galvin, the Chief Research Officer for Vistage Worldwide. Joe is responsible for providing Vistage members with the most current, compelling, and actionable thought leadership on the strategic issues and decisions for small and mid-sized business leaders. Joe is an established thought leader and analyst whose research published and presented to business leaders around the world for Gartner, Serious Decisions, and CSO Insights on customer management, world-class sales performance, and CRM-SFA technology. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bill. CEOs are in the business of making decisions. That's what they do. And our research that I'm very happy to share with you today are focused on decisions for customer growth. We wanted to understand what were the key strategies, what were the major investments, and what were the winning initiatives when it comes to engaging with customers. How do you find more? How do you win more? How do you retain and grow more customers? I'm Joe Galvin with Vistage, and we've done this study in partnership with Salesforce to focus on and gain an understanding of what are the key decisions that small and mid-sized business CEOs, business owners, presidents, key executives, those folks that are focused on growing the business and the customer aspects of it, what are those key decisions? And then understand what are the attributes, what are the behaviors, what are the winning initiatives of high performance small and mid-sized businesses. What we know and what our research has told us is that we are in this rare economic world of tailwinds, that the confidence level that we see, and this is data that comes from our CEO Confidence Index, the Q3 findings, show that we're at near record high in terms of CEO confidence. This is a survey of the Vistage CEO members, and we traditionally get between 1,300 and 1,500 responses to this. In our most recent study done in September of 2017, we find that confidence is high. When you look at this over the history of our survey, you'll see that going back to the Great Recession of 2009, how confidence and GDP have moved together, and that we see this recent high is reflective in the responses we get. 77% of the CEOs that responded to our study expect increased revenues, 62% increased profits, and 62% are planning to expand their workforce. So I'd ask you those questions as you look into, if you look back to last year and then you look ahead to this year, are you going to see increased revenues this year? Will your profits grow? And do you see adding to your workforce? We ask these questions on a regular basis, and that forms the foundation of our analysis. And what this shows is that we're in this low to slow growth environment. And especially recently, we're coming off recent highs, but still at historical highs for confidence for small and mid-sized businesses to grow. So we want to understand, what are the decisions, what are the investments, and what are the initiatives? We think that CEOs are in the business of making decisions. That's what CEOs do. You make decisions big and small every day, some which are tactical and some which determine the fate and the fortune of your company. We also think that if CEOs are in the business of making decisions, then leadership is the art of execution. It's how does the leader now take this decision, make the investment, and execute through initiatives to bring it to life. And that's what we want to study. We asked our CEO community, this was in a separate study, we asked them, what are the major decisions you'll make regarding your business in 2017? More than 1,000 responses, we were able to categorize that into these 5 areas. Talent, the people that you hire, the people that you train, the people that you develop, the people that you depend on to grow your business. Customers, where we're going to focus our energy today, your customers, marketing, sales, customer service. The operations of your business, the financials of your business, and then leadership. How do you behave as a leader? And what are the processes or disciplines of leadership that you use? So we asked this major decisions. We followed it up with, what are the major investments? Now as you move from making that decision to leading, where are you going to make those investments? And we found a very similar pattern of talent and customers. The big shift you see between operations and financial is the shift of investment in technology. Technology did not appear on our top 20 list, or was that number 19 in our list of individual topics. When aggregated, you see it shift from a financial decision into an operational investment. So we look at this as a foundation for where are the decisions that CEOs are making. And today what we're going to focus on are those customer-related decisions. Our study is the growth strategies for SMB success. I just took you through this concept of the business of making decisions and the leadership is the art of execution. A brief introduction, we'll talk a minute here quick about the study and the background, but we want to get into how did we identify high performance small and mid-sized business. We will explore and talk about the strategies and the investments they have in place for customer growth. We'll look at the winning initiatives of high growth small and mid-sized businesses for marketing, sales, and customer service. And then we'll talk about the impact of technology. Again, you'll see technology and leadership are 2 threads that run through this study as undercurrents of high performance. But we'll talk and we'll wrap at the end about digital transition and digital transformation. And then we'll focus on and wrap up with what are those key decisions that we see high growth SMB CEOs are making, and what are some of the thoughts and considerations you'll need as you think about what it relates to your business. You can find all this. It's available to download here in the toolbox. You're also welcome to come to the Vistage Research Center, vistage.com/research center, and download the ebook. In the ebook, you'll find the charts we're going to go through today, but you'll also find some contributions from some real experts. Pete Hayes from Chief Outsiders, Gretchen Gordon from Braveheart Sales, Tom Stewart, who we partnered with on a talent planning ebook a while back, and Brent Leary, a respected SMB CRM analyst, to talk about technology. And we're available for you to download that along with a lot of the other content that we create that are all focused on the issues, topics, and decisions of small and mid-sized business presidents, CEOs, business owners on the issues and topics of business optimization, leadership enhancement. That's what we're focused on. So let's take a look at this community that we work with. Well, first, let's stop. Let's talk about what were our objectives. What were we trying to accomplish in this study? And as I said, we wanted to understand what are people doing? What are people currently doing? What are they active? And what are they thinking about in the future? And that's the concept behind this. We wanted to look at what are the strategies for growth. And we asked this question, what are the key strategies that you are using to grow your customers and grow your business? And we're going to explore what those strategies for growth are. We wanted to find out where they were investing. Again, we wanted to look at high performance, small and mid-sized business CEOs. Where are they making investments? We know there's a difference. I make a decision to do something. It's something different to now make the decision, to click the buy button, if you will, as we now move into cyber holiday shopping. Making that decision is now moving from a decision to the investment, to the actual implementation and execution. And that's what we wanted to understand as well. What are people doing today? What are the differences between high growth and no growth companies across the continuums and details of marketing, sales, customer service? And then where does technology fit into all this? My belief is that technology is a change agent of our generation, and we're going to touch on technology at varying points as we move through this, because I think technology is a key driver and a big part of everything that we do, and more importantly, everything that our people do and our customers do. So let's take a look at what is this group that we're studying. Well, this is the demographics from our study. We had 1,352 responses. We did this study the second week of August, which arguably is probably not the best time to do a study like this, but again, to show the strength of the Vistage member community. We had 1,352 responses. What's also powerful about this is that because this is a survey of Vistage members, we know for a fact that these people are in fact business owners, they're presidents, they're CEOs, because we only poll them based upon how they represent themselves in our systems. So not only is this a number 3 to 4 to 5 times what you see in other studies, we know it's pure. It's not a social email, hey, would everybody take my study? Rather, these are Vistage members sharing their opinions, and we're very grateful to our membership to do this. So you look at the demographics, you can see it represents, from an industry standpoint, what small and mid-sized business is all about. It really is the services, the manufacturing, the wholesale trade, finance. You look at revenues, it's between 1 and 10, 1 and 50, and 1 and 100. And you'll see our demographics again are very tightly in that 1 to 100 million band, and along with the level of employees as well. So the people that responded to this study are a great representation of the small and mid-sized business community, specific to that Vistage community. And we have over 10,000 CEOs, specific CEOs who are members, and these are their opinions. So I think that this data is uniquely valuable and uniquely insightful. What we wanted to get to is what are high growth SMBs? How do you define a high growth SMB? And first I'll say that there are a million factors that go into this. Whether you've got a disruptive product, or where you sit in the market, how long you've been there. There are a lot of reasons, external factors that we can't really impact. The economy being one of them. But the economy being all boats rise to the tide, all boats fall with the tide, we found that's not true. And we wanted to understand why some businesses were rising higher in a rising tide and some were maybe sinking a little bit. So we wanted to find out what are high growth SMBs. So we asked this question, what was your revenue growth in the prior year, so 2016? And you see 37% had double-digit growth. And when you go to the other side, the flat decline and decline 6 to 10, you're at 23%. So there's some, in a 2016 environment that we can all look back and reflect on, where were you? What level of growth did you see in your business? We then asked them to project, and again, this is August, so it's mid-year, people have a pretty good feel. We then asked them to project, what do you think your revenue growth will be in 2017? And you'll see our 10 plus group grew from 37 to 47, and our flat to decline decayed down to 12%. What we then did is overlaid those two responses, and what we found is that 28% of the respondents showed double-digit growth both last year and projected for this year. And that's what comprised our high growth SMB group, compared to 8% who were flat to declining in both years. That creates a foundation for our study. So from there, we now jump into the things that we wanted to explore and the things that we wanted to understand. So as in any research study, there's always a collection of yawns and surprises. What were some of the expected and unexpected things that we found? Well, one of the yawns that we found was that it's never a single thing. There's no silver bullet. I wish I could tell you that this is the answer, this is what you should do these 3 things and you will win, but that's simply not true. Rather, it's understanding from a trend basis what is actually working or not working and what are people doing or not doing. There's a phrase I love to repeat, fuzzy math measured consistently is directionally accurate. So I'd like you to take and look at this data and take it as a reflective point of where you are in your business. Only you can decide where your business is. Only you can decide how it's going to grow, how it needs to grow, what's possible to grow. What we want to share with you here is the opportunity to do some comparisons, to look and think and understand about how other organizations are addressing these common issues, and hopefully you'll walk away with 1 or 2 or 3 ideas, and I hope you'll have some new questions. At Vistage Research, we think a couple things. One, that research without data is just another opinion. So you'll see that our reports are very data rich. We also think that only you can decide, meaning that it's impossible for us to understand in completion the context of your business, the uniqueness of your capabilities, the marketplace that you're competing in. Those unique individual dynamics are unique and specific to you. And that's where the Vistage group, the Vistage board, and the Vistage chair are so important in bringing context to that. So the yawn is, there's no silver bullets in here, but I hope you'll find a number of comparative points that will get you to think more deeply about your business. Next is, as companies grow, they add leaders, they add technology, become more sophisticated. I guess I had hoped that I would find some magic inflection point, whereas you go from this level to this level, or within this vertical as you do this and do that, that the winners do this and the others do that. And it turned out that doesn't really play, that there is a natural progression and a natural period of time that we find organizations at the higher end of our scale not having specific leaders and roles, and we find organizations at the smaller end having dedicated leaders and roles. It's less about, there's not a clear point when organizations add these roles, but it's clear that these roles have impact when they are added. And maybe that's the other side of the yawn, is that, well, yeah, as you get bigger, things get more complicated. I need, deeper layers of technology. Everything's just more complicated. But it's also true that you can get an advance on that by when and how you inject both your leaders and technologies. We'll explore that a little bit. And the vertical markets, they pretty much follow. They pretty much follow the group that I guess I'd expected that maybe we'd find some unique or some bubbles that would pop up. But generally, we find that the verticals, the manufacturing, the services, the retail trade, some of the other ones, they tend to follow these plus or minus a reasonable percent. So again, a yawn is there's no magic, magic secret sauce coming out of this for specific verticals. Rather, these are broad trends that probably confirm a lot of what you experience and what you think. But now we can show a little data and really understand some of the differences. It's interesting. We live in a time where it's hard to get people to agree on a lot of stuff. And that's where, one of the yawns that quickly transitioned to was a surprise is that everyone agrees that small business is the backbone of the American economy. In fact, even in this crazy world, it's the one thing we can get our politicians to agree on.
The backbone of the American economy. Small businesses are the backbone of this nation's economy.
Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy.
That's courtesy of John Oliver and Last Week Tonight. A really funny show, regardless of your politics, but it shows that at least we can agree on one thing today, and that is that small business is the backbone of the American economy. No, we don't want to hear that again. We're going to move on.
Small business.
There we go. So what were some of the surprises? What were some of the things that came out of the study that we were surprised a little bit at? And the first one is that everyone is working on marketing. I don't think that when we think about the changes that have occurred in business, and I've been fortunate because I started at the peak of what I call analog sales. Those were the days before technology, when salespeople went door to door and salespeople had to call people on the phone and write letters. Through this incredible change in technology, but as much as sales has changed, much as service has changed, nothing has changed more than marketing. And you look at the birth of the internet in the late 90s, you break the bubble. Between 2003 and today, nothing has changed more than marketing. So I thought that would be a competitive advantage for the high growth small businesses. And it turns out that everybody is working on marketing. Everyone's investing in marketing. Everyone has across our demographics, everyone has or is moving towards dedicated leadership, and everyone's playing with marketing technology. So a surprise is that that you are engaged in both marketing leaders and marketing technology is not an advantage. Rather, it now becomes almost like a requirement to play. So if you're not doing it, you're now far behind. Next is that the old school analog tactics still rule. Again, as I said, I started in the analog days of sale. I've studied the evolution of the customer buying pattern, and there comes a point. In fact, I was talking to a colleague today about it. There comes a point where our digital interactions convert or transition to an analog human interaction. Depending upon what you sell and what you buy, there's some things you never need to talk to a human about. Some people can go and buy things as a consumer individually. As a business person, whether you're buying or selling, there comes a point when you transition to some human interaction. I call it the digital analog transition. People still buy from people, and human interactions matter. And it was surprising, and we'll get to this when we get to the initiatives, something like referrals was the second most common winning tactic in marketing and third in sales. And that's as old as sales itself. So there is still this combination of new emerging dynamic digital tactics and the continued reliance on analog human interactions. Artificial intelligence popped up randomly and frequently across a lot of continuums. I just came from the November Dreamforce, Salesforce Dreamforce event in San Francisco, and artificial intelligence was a key topic that popped up across the marketing, the sales, and the customer service tracks. It's early stage. Pieces of it are already in place that we're not really conscious of, and there's a huge motion of energy to be able to define it and quantify it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, except to say that it may not be here today, but wake up tomorrow and see if it's knocking on your door, and we'll touch on that a little bit. And then finally, this was, again, one of the great insights that came out of the study was that new customers are the growth engine for SMB. So small business is the backbone of the American economy. New customers are the growth engine for that SMB. And we're going to explore this a little bit. We know that, and we knew that the revenue and customers and your existing customers were critical, and they are. Retention, loyalty, customer satisfaction, the ability to grow your customer base, to cross-sell, upsell, to launch and integrate new products into your existing customer base, that's all critical. But what jumped out was how the high growth companies were driving greater percentage of revenues from the much harder to get new customers, and we're going to touch on that. So let's dig into this. Let's start to peel this back a little bit and understand what we're talking about. What are the strategies that drive customer growth? So we asked this community, 1,352 responses. Which strategies are part of your plans for customer growth in the coming year? Understanding that there's not a single strategy, but whether there are multiple strategies. And what we found was this. These are the top 5 strategies. And again, we used both responses that you could check as well as free-form text and our ability to use text analytics to integrate and align those responses with our captured responses. And again, what you're going to see here is interesting is that in these top 5 strategies, what you see is that the high growth companies are more likely to be doing each one of these. So expansion, retention of existing customers. Well, that's really important because that's the foundation of your revenue. As you create new products, as you launch new services, if you have some type of recurring revenue function or some way of repeat sales, then those existing customers are critical. But what we see here is our high growth SMBs at 10% double digits, multiple years, 17% more likely to be their top strategy. Serving new markets and new customers. Now we're 27% more likely, the high growth. Well, this gets back to the point we said before about new customers, that new customers are the growth engine of small businesses, small and mid-sized business growth. Well, here, this focus of high growth on serving new markets and customers. Next, operational efficiencies to get better scale for growth. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. If you're not improving, you're falling behind. If you're not winning, you're losing. So again, it's not a surprise at 31% that the high growth companies are looking to get better at what they do. Continuous improvement, operational efficiencies. Next, introducing new products and capabilities. Again, we see a difference. It's not to say that no growth companies aren't doing this, but we see more high growth companies are doing it, and we'll see in a minute, they're doing it better. And then growing the sales force. Well, if you want to grow your business, you have to have more touch points with the customers. It's about telesales, it's customers. There's also a thread in here of adding marketing people. So as you look at these top 5 strategies that drive customer growth, what you see are a couple things. One, that high growth companies are more likely to be doing each of these activities, but they are also up to 30% more likely to engage in all 5. Meaning they're not putting their bets on a single strategy. Rather, they have their foot on all 5 strategies, looking to grow their existing customers, add new customers, get better at what they do, continuous innovation, right? And then adding the resources that connect to the customer to make that possible. So when we ask the question, what are your key strategies? This is what came out. And the question I would ask you is, what are your key strategies for customer growth? Do you have a documented customer growth strategy for how you execute, where you're making investments to drive these strategies? Because that leads to our next question, which is, actually, we're going to explore this a minute, sorry. We get back into this now about where do you get your revenues? There's this underlying thread of new customers versus existing customers. So we asked this question, what is your current revenue breakdown? And I would ask you, between new and existing customers, what is your revenue breakdown? Because what we see here is that high growth, the double-digit growth companies, are getting 29% of their revenue from new customers. Now, again, there's a lot of data, and there's some fake research out there about it takes 7 times as hard to get a new customer than an old customer. There's a lot of belief and truth around that. And the reality is acquiring a new customer is harder because, one, you either have to replace an existing provider, you have to offer something different or improvement on what your existing provider has, or you offer something that your existing provider can't offer. And in each case, it's a concept we developed called buyer's risk paradigm, that as you introduce more new elements, you introduce more layers of risk, which is why getting new customers is so much harder, which is why when we see and we look at our high growth, double-digit small and mid-sized businesses, they're getting a higher percentage from new customers. So I ask you, what percentage of your business do you get from new customers? What investments are you making to get to new customers? And what are your initiatives? Because that's what we're going to focus on as we go through the balance of our discussion today. So now let's get to those areas of investment. In which areas will you be investing to accomplish your customer growth plan? So now we're moving from making decisions to leadership and the art of execution. So I'd ask you, where are you making investments? What investments have you made? And how are they connected to your growth strategy? And to what degree is it connected to new versus existing customers? That's the thread that rolls through this, right? Well, here are the top 5 investments. And we're not going to go sequential, but rather jump to number 3, to marketing. As I said earlier, everybody's doing marketing. Yeah, there's a slight difference, 4% more likely, but both high growth and no growth companies are making investments in marketing. They're putting in marketing professionals. They're investing in marketing technologies. They are moving towards digital marketing, creating that digital experience. The other is infrastructure. Well, yeah, if I'm growing at double digits, I'm going to have to make investments. If it's manufacturing, it's more capabilities. It might be supply chain. If it's services, it's more people, expanding IP. Think about the areas of just core infrastructure driven by that technology we saw early on in investments. That's not a surprise. What this shines out is that it's talent, training, and technology that are the difference makers. And I guess you could, that's close to people, process, and technology, but we think about it differently because talent is the recruiting, hiring of new people, onboarding, time to productivity. It's developing and engaging the people that you have. Employee engagement is becoming a huge issue. At 4.1 to 4.3 unemployment, we are effectively at full employment. What happens if you lose one of your existing key employees? What does that mean to your business? Or better yet, as you grow, what's that next key hire you have to make, and where are you going to find them? Because just as you're looking for good people, people are looking for your good people. So it's the old, and then that leads to training. It's not just training new hires, it's training and developing the people that you have. Again, it's a phrase many people use. What if I train my people and they leave? And the response is, what if you don't train them and they stay? Training and employee engagement are a key part of retaining, developing, and nurturing your talent and your high potential talent. And then, of course, technology. Technology runs through everything that we talk about. It's the change agent of our generation. You think about how you communicate with your customers today and compare that to even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there wasn't social. Social is a function of the last 7 to 9 years. Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of that. What about your internet web presence? That wasn't a factor until 2001, 2000, right? How'd you communicate to customers in the early 90s? When did you transition from sending them letters to sending emails? Technology's changed everything about our business, everything about our personal and business lives. So this is where we see people are making decisions. It's talent, training, and technology, the investments that people are making there that prove to be, in aggregate, the great difference between high growth and no growth small and mid-sized businesses. It gets to this concept then, and one of these key investments we saw was talent and training, but it's also this function of having leadership. And we wanted to find out and thought there would be a trend, and it turned out there wasn't in terms of company size, but there is a real connection between performance and having dedicated leadership. Sales leader, we see some differences between sales, customer service, and marketing, but it's high growth companies are 40%. They're twice as likely to have dedicated leadership in all 3 roles. So I asked, for smaller businesses, the question is, are you both CEO and chief sales officer? Because those 2 roles rarely function optimally in a combined role. At what point do you bring in your first salesperson? Or as one of the experts in our community, Drew Seif, suggests, you should bring in your first salesperson, bring in two, because just the failure rate of salespeople in general, and you'll double the speed of learning to learn what will work and won't work when you're not the key selling person. As you grow the organization, when do you bring in a sales leader? When do you bring in specific dedicated customer service? Someone who's focused only on that customer experience and the value they get. Or a marketing leader. Again, we see smaller gap in marketing, but it has to do with the fact that everybody's doing marketing. The key here, I think, is that high growth functions have dedicated leadership in all three functions. And again, there's a continuation of growth. If you're a $1 or $2 million company versus a 10 or 20 or 50 or 100, it has different nuances. But the thing to consider, the question you need to ask yourself, and the decision you're faced with is, when do you put in dedicated leadership in these roles? And if you have that, to what degree are they the right leaders to drive the level of specialized performance you should expect from dedicated leadership? Another element that we found interesting is, how effectively do you use technology to engage with your customers? Again, this thread of technology that's running through what we're talking about today, it's a part of everything that we do. This chart shows, we asked the question, how effectively do you use technology to engage with customers? And we compared our high growth with leadership to our no growth with leadership. Now, it would have been really easy to say high growth leadership, no growth, no leadership, because that really kind of, that you can predict that result. But we wanted to see if there was a real shift here. And what we saw was that the high growth companies are 19% more likely to be highly effective in their use with leadership, as compared to no growth at only 36%. And when we look at the other side, it's the no growth that are 59% more likely to be ineffective in its use. So we know that having dedicated leaders in place is a predictor of high growth. But we also see having the right leader in place and their ability to drive and improve the utilization of technology makes a big difference in performance as well. So we find this thread of leadership and technology moving through all of the activities, through the initiatives and the technologies used, deployed, and valued across this thread as a difference between what we see the high growth small businesses do and the low growth. So that looks at strategies and investments. We wanted to get deeper. We wanted it to get real tactical and say, well, okay, well, what are the initiatives? We know who our high growth companies are, our high growth businesses. What are the initiatives that they're doing for customer engagement? What are those winning initiatives in marketing, sales, service, and strategies? And we got this quote from Marie Rosecrans. She's a Salesforce executive, part of Tony Rodini's team, that's focused on the small business. And her concept here is again, similar with many of ours. It said, you're always looking to get better. High growth companies are always looking to get better. They have that mentality of always wanting to be world class. And Marie's quote of finding ways to find, win, and keep customers to grow their business faster. And that's the key. So we asked this question, under marketing, attracting new customers. What marketing efforts are working best for finding new customers? I'd ask you just to pause for a second and ask yourself, what are you doing in marketing that's working for you? How would you have answered this question if you had this? And this was an open text box. So this is all text analytics that we did to aggregate, collate, and then kind of put together the threads of consciousness that people shared with us. So marketing efforts working best. Here's what we found. Digital marketing is at the top of the list, and that's not surprising, and that's consistent. We know that everyone's focused on marketing, and this change, this adaptation of digital marketing, the requirements of a website, now the requirements to have a social presence, that would be top. But look at what was second, referrals. Referrals. Referrals are a human-to-human endeavor. Referrals are your customers talking positively about you. Referrals are net promoter scores. Referrals are having your salespeople ask your good customers at the right time if they would be a referral. A documented case study is a referral. Referral is a classic old school peer-to-peer, word-of-mouth, analog marketing tactic. So this blend of digital and analog shows up immediately in our marketing tactics. The question behind this is, if referrals is the second most common, most successful winning strategy, what is your strategy for referrals? Now everyone would say, the survey shows us, everyone agrees it's really important. You're surprised that less than 10% of SMBs have a documented referrals strategy that covers both the marketing approach and the sales approach. We're about to publish a piece of research on building a winning referral strategy. Again, stop by our research center. You have a chance to download and take a look at that. And then you go to direct marketing. Again, kind of this old school. I send you an email, I send you a letter. I send you an email, or I post advertising on Facebook, and I stick a flyer in your mailbox. Events and conferences and networking. Again, going out and mingling with the people, talking to folks. I have a friend who's a small lighting business. He works on influencing the influencers because he knows it's the influencers that are affecting decisions that come back around to him. And that's all part of networking, relationships, events and conferences. Relationships are not dead. Despite the growth and the belief of the techno-bot, Techzilla taking over things, this artificial intelligence Skynet, it's still humans dealing with humans. And I believe that will remain core to any decision that involves more than one person. It involves any degree of change, integration, or customization. And we can discuss that at another time. So where are you in marketing? Where are you in marketing? Again, it's this blend of analog and digital and analog that are the winning strategies. And again, it's not to say that low growth or the no growth companies aren't doing these. We find that high growth with leadership and technology are doing more of them, and they're doing them better. Let's talk to sales. What sales efforts are working best for winning new customers? Remember, we're focused here on the new customer. How do we get to that hard to get, hard to convince, high risk, multiple option? There's so much information out there. You can get fake news on any product you want. You go to a referral site, and of course, you're going to see all the amazing referrals, right? What are the strategies? What are the efforts that are working best? So what are they for you? How would you have answered this question? Because here's what we found. Relationships, face-to-face selling. As I said, I've been in sales. I was 17 years on quota. I've covered sales as an analyst for years. And about 5 years ago, there was this new secret sauce that relationships were dead. Customers had all the information, and that sales would cease as a function in the immediate future. And none of that proved to be true, because what we see here is what makes for winning sales efforts is one, relationships, face-to-face, person-to-person, human-to-human, analog interaction, and all the traditional sales skills and competencies that go with it. But also look at number two, having a defined sales process. You don't make it up one interaction at a time. After a period of time, you should begin to understand the buying process, the buying milestones, the buying activities that happen when people buy your stuff. And that's what a sales process is. A sales process is evolving, but always focused on the decisions and the varying phases of decisions as a customer goes through an evaluation, an understanding, and a selection exercise in what you're selling. Understanding that process and then managing to that allows you to continuously optimize and tune that as your customers change. Hey, look what's number three, referrals. Referrals. Again, I spent a lot of time in sales. Maybe my enterprise background says referrals. Well, that's a sales skill. There's a woman named Joanne Black who does fabulous work on referrals as a sales skill in the enterprise salesperson. But when I think about small and mid-sized business, you are your business. You are the face of your business. You're the voice of your business. Getting referrals, getting your customers, getting the people that use your services or your products to positively refer you either in a recommendation on your website, in a conversation they have with a peer at some other location. Do you have a dedicated referral strategy? And again, we find that people don't. This piece of research will help you understand what are the key things you need to understand about a referral strategy and how to begin working towards them. And then like project demo and trials. People still have to see stuff, being able to show and explain in the context of what's important to your customer. And then this notion of specialized sales roles. When do you grow? When do you add? When do you bring in a dedicated product specialist? One of the challenges, especially as you get into complex capabilities, is you have to bring in specialized knowledge. So you'll begin to see subject matter experts maybe appear. One of the threads that's emerging and moving both through the enterprise, the large, and now small and mid-size is the concept of enablement. The blurring of traditional product training and sales skills training, combining that with customer interaction and messaging training, allowing the salespeople to connect more closely and have a better understanding of what's important to the customer. That's always been what's mattered in professional selling, what's important to the customer. Now there are more ways and different ways to get to that. So that's in sales. Where are you at? What are the things that you're doing to get better at selling, to enhance your ability to win more new customers? And let's spend a moment, if we could, on retaining and growing customers. Here we're now talking about the existing revenue base we have and how we're going to grow that. So answer this question. What's working best for retaining and expanding existing customers? One of the sound bites we got was, we work really hard to make sure our customers are really successful, and we hope that they refer us. Excuse me. Well, hope is not a strategy. This is what we see people are doing. Emphasize the importance of communications, clear, consistent communications, both about the positive values, attributes, and emotional connections to your capabilities, but also when there are issues, problems, or challenges. And it's interesting to watch how, as certain activities occur in the news cycle, how people respond to that in their communication strategy. Quality is the next and always important, and it showed up in a variety of ways in a variety of other areas that blurs out the importance of, you are only as good as your last customer. You are only as good as the last person who sent you money and how they felt about that, how they feel now about how they are using to work with you. Because if you think about the conversations you have with people about a recent experience with maybe a service provider or a vendor or someone that does work for you, it's all about quality. You're only as good as the last product you produced, the last customer you satisfied. Having dedicated resources, right? That's really important. Have someone who wakes up in the morning and all they think about is, how did customers get value today? What can we do to ensure our customers will get value today? And how can we, if they're having an issue, resolve it in the quickest, easiest, most painless process? You have to be responsive. I mean, that's come on, process and resolution. But you have to have a process too. And again, I would challenge you. I would ask you, what is your process? Do you have a dedicated, specialized resource? Do you have a leader in place? And maybe you're not at that place in the growth trajectory yet, but where are you at in developing that process and strategy and then managing to that? Because the biggest dent in new customer sales is existing customer loss. When you lose a customer, you lose more than just the revenue. You now provide a proof point. You now add to the risk bucket for potential new customers. So customer service, ensuring your existing customers are happy and quality, those are all messages of all time. There's no nuance or newness there. But it's those organizations that dedicate the leadership and the resources and that align the technology are having the greatest success here, and that's impacting their growth. Let's move on and spend, if we could, a few minutes on this concept of digital transition to digital transformation, and then we'll wrap up with some of the key thoughts that I think you want to walk away with. We're living through an amazing time. Again, I go back to when I was a salesperson, 1984, New York City with Xerox, and how salespeople sell today. The nuance of social selling, the amount of information that's available to both the customer and to the salesperson, and how organizations respond, engage, and grow into that. And I think what we've done is collectively, we've gone through a digital transition, meaning we've taken the analog processes that we've done over here and we transitioned them into digital tools. And we've done our best or tried really hard to bend the digital capabilities to our analog processes. And that's kind of where we are today. And now we're starting to push those transitions into a cloud platform. But we haven't truly transformed. All we've done is replicated the inefficiencies of our paper process into some technology. And I think about, again, in the context of sales, the paper forms I filled out at Xerox about my forecast, product, revenue, close date, sales phase, that I then put in spreadsheets when I was at Gartner, that we then migrated to a client server-based remote sync application, that we then put into a cloud-based Salesforce system. But it was all the same. We didn't really change anything. To truly transform is to embrace what the technology is designed to do best and do your best at that technology. My belief is that, especially in the small and mid-sized business, you have neither the expertise, you don't have the hundreds, thousands of customers or experiences or exposures, nor the time to think you can develop best practices. Rather, identify those technologies that approximate what you believe you want to do and rebuild your processes based on that technology. And let me show you what I mean. We asked this question, looking at high growth and no growth, about what do you have in place? And again, before I go down to it, again, marketing, you see very similars. Between gray is we have nothing, 11 is we have homegrown, 67 is we have some application. But look, when we look at sales and we look at customer service, what we see is the no growth companies have a higher percentage of none. That means you're doing it manually. Again, small business, the small business that services my local water service here. A gentleman came and he wanted me to write him a check, and I said, can I quick pay you? He says, oh wait, I've got an electronic payment system we just got. So they're now using the Square system, and just like you do in a lot of cabs now, swipe my credit card and we were good to go. That's a small business adapting to and embracing technology, going from a none world. Prior they had a homegrown kind of thing where they had an electronic mailbox, and now they've moved to an app. And what you see consistently, once you get past marketing, in sales and service, high growth companies are more likely to use applications than to develop their own or to not use anything. And that leads to another challenge, which is when you talk about applications, which applications do you use? What's the right mix? And just like we can now find information on anything and everything, you can also find an application on everything. And that's what we call Appapalooza. We had more than 300 different types of applications appear when we asked what type of applications do you use. From small itty bitty individual performance productivity apps you get for $3 at the App Store, to full-blown integrated enterprise class capabilities targeted to the small and mid-sized business. In fact, we did in presenting this at Dreamforce, one of our panelists mentioned that they had over 100 applications, that everyone in every group had gone and got their own little collection of stuff that had created maybe better individual performance and productivity, but had left them in just shattered because they couldn't integrate or share anything. So the point here is that if you have technology, do you have the right leadership and resources in place to get the most out of it? Are you maximizing on the world-class best practices that exist in your technology? Are you still trying to bend it to the processes you've kind of developed over time? It's really not a choice of if, it's a matter of when, and it's also a matter of how. And my suggestion to you would be that technology will only continue to change our world and our perspectives, and we'll have to be smarter about how we execute with it and the value we get from it, because that was a clear differentiator. So let's move through now and kind of bring this together and think about what we've discussed today and the 4 key customer growth decisions that we've identified in this study. And only you can decide, only you know what's right for your business. My job is not to answer questions, my job is to raise questions. And hopefully through the course of this, as we talked about the strategies, the investments in these winning initiatives, you've had a chance to think about what you're doing and how that compares to what some of these other winning organizations are doing. I think it settles down to 4 questions. We know that high growth SMBs get more from new customers. So your decision is, how do you increase sales and revenue from new customers? What is your strategy to attract, to connect, to close, and then to make a happy customer for new customers? Because that's a real growth driver for small business. Next, high growth SMBs invest more in talent to support face-to-face interactions. Again, connecting a couple dots here about talent, training, and the importance of the analog human connection, whether that's on the customer service end, it could be on the sales end, it could even be on the demand creation marketing end. It's high growth small businesses invest more in people, in their talent, in their training, and their technology. Next, high growth SMBs are better at execution, and they do that with leadership and technology in place. And I guess maybe that's not a big surprise when you think about it. The fact that it came up so clearly is a strong point. But the question to ask yourself is, A, do you have a leadership team in place? But more importantly, are they capitalizing on how the technologies were designed to be used so you can get the maximum growth from that? And then finally, high growth SMBs see a competitive advantage through dedicated applications. Let the tool do the work for you. Don't try to turn a piece of automation into an analog replication machine. So I hope through our course of our study, we've given you a chance to think about this. What's really important here is that you go back and think about this, apply it to the context of your business, and see whether or not you might want to tune, adapt, or integrate some of these concepts. You can find, as I said before, you can find all this information here through the ebook that you can download. You've got a PDF of these charts And of course, I'm always welcome, eager, and anxious to talk to you. It's joe.galvin@vistage.com. You can follow me on Twitter @Joe Galvin. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Appreciate and hopefully made you think a little bit. You had a chance to answer some questions, and we'll look forward to learning and hearing from you as we continue. So with that, Bill, I'll turn it back to you and ask if there are any questions that came out during the course of our discussion today.
Joe, tremendous job. Very interesting topic. We do have a few questions. I want to remind listeners, you can put in your question, you can input your question into the question field on the right-hand side of your screen. And Joe, the first question is, the person noticed that the survey, it was pretty well mixed between services and manufacturers as the two biggest categories. And as automation kicks in, decisions need to be made of when to replace a human with artificial intelligence or technology. Are there any bright line rules or research that you've seen as to when that should happen?
We have not done research on that, nor have we gone into that level of specificity inside the manufacturing arena. So I can't give an opinion that would be supported by any data, except to suggest that this evolution from human to digital is changing, especially in the manufacturing businesses, is changing the rules. And as it changes the rules, it continues to disrupt. There will come a logical time and point to do that. What I would suggest in trying to provide some guidance is that at some point this will happen, and only you can decide when that right point is. But this is not like the Luddites going after the mechanical early presses of the Industrial Revolution. This is not a wave, it's a tsunami. And the answer would be sooner as opposed to later, I think.
Yeah, of course, we have converging forces with things like minimum wage increases and workers becoming more expensive that also come into play, right?
Well, you've got this whole issue of talent, and where today we were focused on customers, but the higher level talent, we saw that the higher level issues earlier is talent. Again, at the level of unemployment that we have today, there are pockets of unemployment both in terms of markets and in terms of geographies, but by and large, there are jobs for those people that are skilled, and the shift is from those jobs that we work with more on our brain versus those that we work with our back, because what technology can replace what humans do, and technology never takes a day off and it doesn't need holidays. So there's that shift that will occur, and the question is when or how. But it also suggests there's tremendous opportunity, especially as young people are going through our educational system, to learn the STEM technologies, the science, technology, education, medical, to be able to bring this into and be more skilled. Because as our population base grows, the planet's supposed to add 1 billion people by 2025. As population base grows, these capabilities will be required. So it puts real pressure on the small business leader to not just retain and develop the people that they have, but to identify and pull in those next people who want to work in this environment and have the right skills as the world just gets more complex.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments. How about this question, Joe? You talked about customer retention and the importance of face-to-face sales. Was there any research showing the effectiveness of personal face-to-face versus hybrid? I guess they're talking about hybrid web-based face-to-face, like platforms like this, like GoToMeeting, where you can put up your face and have teleconferences and things like that.
Yeah, I would absolutely include that as a digital representation of face-to-face. So maybe it's like the blur, it's where the freshwater and the seawater meet. But there is a distinct difference, and you know it yourself, between this environment where we're just listening and looking versus where there's a face there and someone's talking. We do all of our research calls. We try to do them all in video calls because there's a higher level of human connection and interaction. And when you're in a creative development, exchanging of ideas, trying to influence or persuade, humans respond more strongly to humans. So whether you're using a video or a video call or even voice, that's analog, real-time human communication. That's something my grandfather sold, in the 1930s. He could talk to somebody on the phone. He could visit them face-to-face. Same thing happens today. And now we've got this video capability. So when I think of face-to-face, video is not as intimate as human, as personal, as physical, but it's much better than just pure audio, I think. It's a much stronger experience.
Yeah, and as that technology gets faster, I mean, I remember the early days, there was kind of a lag sometimes. the things weren't downloading as quickly, but it's improved immensely, right? And that's a trend I'm sure we'll see continue.
Well, I know the gift that every father could give their middle school, high school, and college age kids is more bandwidth and faster bandwidth at home.
Yeah.
Right? It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Great thought. I wanted to let listeners know that you can find the handouts for the slides in the handouts section on the right-hand side. And also this presentation will be available in its entirety on the Vistage website and emailed to each of you listening next week. Joe, we had another question about key employee engagement. And it seems like key employees, people that are the knowledge workers in the business, and you said I think you said if they're valuable to you, they're very valuable to your competitor, something Absolutely. Like that. And so what are some of the trends that you come across, or have you explored that at Vistage about trends in retaining those key employees, making sure that they don't take that or respond to that call from the headhunter?
Yeah, I did a webinar recently with a vendor in this space, one of our sponsors, Amplified, and Santiago, and we talked about the fact that much like a referral strategy, which no one really has, very few organizations have an employee engagement strategy, which is what are you doing to understand what's important to your employees? What are you doing to create an engaging developmental environment that's consistent with what they want to do and where they want to go? What are you doing to invest in your people that will increase their loyalty? And just like you've got Net Promoter Score for customers, to what degree do your existing employees, are they willing to refer their friends and family their friends, family, and network to potential opportunities in your company? Employee culture and how that attracts and dictates how companies behave is a critical factor. And many believe with the millennials moving into the workforce and every year penetrating deeper and higher into the hierarchy, that concept of engagement is not just what I do, but it's where I do it, how I do it, and who I do it with, becomes a critical predictor of success and long-term employee commitment. And again, I've always felt this is amplified in the small business because your key group may be 5 or 6 people. In a big billion-dollar company, it's 50 or 60 or 100 or 500, right? But in a small business, you've got people with individual skills, individual expertise, and these massive domains of knowledge that not only do you lose that person's ability to execute, you lose that history of knowledge with them. So again, in a world where you'll continue to see low to full unemployment, employee engagement becomes a critical component of your talent management strategy.
That's fantastic information. This is exactly what we members look to Vistage for. Joe, thank you so much for your participation today. Great job.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure and look forward to sharing future research with the Vistage community and all others who are interested in what high integrity, high growth SMB CEOs, what the issues, topics, and decisions they're facing, because that's what we're focused on at Vistage Research. So thank you all very much.
And speaking of that, you want to get your calendars out and circle December 15th at 10 a.m. for another webinar with Joe that will be entitled Driving Customer Engagement Through Referral Marketing. Again, that's Friday, December 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You won't want to miss that. On behalf of Vistage Worldwide, my name is Bill Black. Thanking you so much for joining us for Fridays with Vistage and wishing you continued success. This ends today's webinar.